Guys, welcome. For those that just came in, please copy down the notes on the board, the focus questions at the top in blue, and then you guys can copy down what's on the left as well in red. We'll still wait for a few more people to come in, but please just copy down the notes on the board along with the focus question at the top. All right, we will start in about 30 seconds. Please continue to copy what's on the board. Okay, so we're just going to wrap up yesterday's lesson a little bit. I first want to bring your attention to the right over here, where you see these different things in different colors. Yesterday, we looked at the four captains of industry: Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller, the Cornelius Vanderbilt, and J.P. Morgan. This is a little bit of an answer key. So if you want to go back to yesterday's assignment, or if you were unsure what one of the captains of industry did, so if you didn't know what Cornelius Vanderbilt, okay, these are what these four people monopolized. So Andrew Carnegie had all of the steel products. So if you needed steel, you had to go to him. We did that one together. John D. Rockefeller monopolized oil. He had the Standard Oil Company, which if you needed oil, you needed to go to him. Vanderbilt monopolized the railroads. Okay, so if you wanted to ride the railroad, you had to go through him. And J.P. Morgan monopolized banks. Okay, so if you wanted to go to a bank, you had to go through him. So these four people became four of the wealthiest and biggest leaders of the industrial era because they owned a monopoly. So today we want to look at what problems occur when someone owns a monopoly. It says, or too much laissez-faire in government. You don't have to write down that second part. Just we need to figure out what problems occur when someone owns a monopoly. Okay, and then we'll wrap up yesterday's lesson, and then we can continue into today. So number one, monopoly owners consolidate or combine a lot of smaller companies that sell the same product. So let's take oil. Let's say you wanted to make oil and sell oil. okay, when at a time John D. Rockefeller had a monopoly on oil. If you tried to do that, this guy had so much money that he could do what's called buy you out, okay? And buying you out basically means you're going to sell him your product, okay? He's going to force you to sell him your product. If you don't, you're not going to make much money off it because his company's so big, all right? So he'll buy you out and then basically take over your product so he becomes even stronger, all right? So monopoly owners can combine a lot of smaller companies to sell the same product, which stops competition. If no one else is selling the same product, we talk about the price, right? The quality. The quality is not going to be as good, and the price is going to be higher. Okay? Ultimately, this hurts us as a buyer. When we buy a product, we want to buy a product that is high in quality but low in price. We want to get the best possible product for us. Okay? If there are monopoly owners just making their own products and not going against other companies, okay, that hurts us because it's going to cost us more money. Remember, if I was the only one that sold these pencils, I can make the price of this pencil $100. You're eventually going to need one. You eventually have to go to me. You eventually have to pay that money. All right? Number two, the captains of industry had a lot more wealth than the workers. This is known as a wage gap. So the bosses of the captains of industry, of the monopolies, were extremely wealthy, some of the wealthiest people in the world. Yet their workers, many of them immigrants, didn't make much money at all. Okay, now, should the boss of a company make more money than the people? Yes. Should the principal of PS 89 make more money than Mr. Panio? Yes. But there was such a large gap, many people believe that some of these monopoly owners who did do a lot of nice charity things maybe should have been paying their workers more money, okay, because a lot of their workers were not making enough money. So this was a little bit of a problem, okay? Okay, it's not the problem that they were rich and had a lot of money. It was the fact that a lot of their workers didn't make that much, okay? So they were hoping that they could be paid a little bit more. All right? Number three, workers had to obey the rules of the captains of industry because they cannot work for another boss. Legitimate question, guys, and you can unmute yourself or write in the chat. If I was unhappy with my job at PS 89, what could I do? Now, of course, I'm happy. I love my job at PS 89, but let's say I was unhappy. What could I do?
Quit.
Jennifer, yes, quit. Ariel, yes, quit. That's fine, because what will I go do? I can go get another teaching job. No problem. All right? It's probably not the nicest thing to quit, but, you know, if things don't work out and I wanted to go to another job and I like my job as teaching, I just go to another teaching job. There's thousands, tens of thousands of other schools. Okay? Let's say I don't get along with Mr. Martinez. And I say, you know what? It's just not a good fit for me here. I want to go to another school. That's fine. I go to another school and leave. But let's say you're very good at producing oil. And let's say you have a problem with John D. Rockefeller. You can't quit. You can't go to another oil industry and work for them. You have to do a completely different job. And you may think that's easy as a kid, but when you get older, you only get really good at doing a couple of things for a job. And sometimes you don't want to change that. I'm not saying you can't. It's not saying I can't have another career and do something other than teaching. But I've spent a lot of my time getting to here so I can become a teacher. I'm not just going to want to change jobs. If there is a monopoly, you can't go work for another boss. All right, so workers had to obey the rules of the captains of industry. They had to obey the pay. They did not have the opportunity to just quit and go to another job like maybe I would, because I can go work at another school for another principal and be happy. You can't go work at another oil industry because you're just going to be working for the same boss. All right, so this led to a lot of workers obeying the rules, even if the rules weren't exactly fair. I often joke with this with my social studies students, but if you have a problem with me as an 8th grade social studies teacher, you can't go to another 8th grade social studies teacher. There's no one else. It's just me, right? So sometimes, now hopefully you don't feel that way, but it gives you the kind of feeling like, okay, well, if I want to pass social studies, I maybe have to get along with Mr. Panio and make sure I'm doing the work for him because I can't go to another class. Now, you have a problem with your ELA teacher, you can maybe go to another class. There's other 8th grade ELA teachers, but not me. Okay, I'm the only social studies guy here. So in essence, I have a monopoly on 8th grade social studies. Therefore, you have to come to my class, and to pass, you have to go through me. All right, so that's a little bit of a kids-student situation to help you better understand. Okay, so now let's look at what happens, because we have so many people working in factories. We have these monopoly owners creating all of these things. Okay, I want to show you how our country starts to look different. And the way it's going to start to look different is many of these factories are not going to be put in random places in farmlands. They're going to be put specifically where? Does anyone want to write in the chat where many factories are going to be placed? What part of the country? See if you guys know the answer. Where are they going to make a lot of these factories? The United States, of course, yes. But I meant not specifically a town or a place, but I'm thinking of, like, is it going to be on the farm? Are they going to be in the suburbs? Are they going to be in cities? Where are the factories and the industry going to basically focus in on? See if anyone knows. No one's sure? Okay, well, let's give you a little help. Take a look at this photo. This is New York City before 1870, in 1870. This is before industry really starts to take off and become very big in our country. Look at what happens 50 years after industry becomes really big. Notice the difference. Here you have, looks like just like a small city. Now you have this major city with many large buildings and many skyscrapers. If you notice about New York City, ladies and gentlemen, New York City is not very large. There's a lot of people living in the small area, but it's not very large. So people realize that if you want to have industry, if you want to have all these factories, you need to be able to have a lot of people living there. And the way they decided to have a lot of people living there is they didn't decide to build outwards, they decided to build up. Okay, the higher you build, the more people could live in a smaller area. So we started to see our first skyscrapers. Since so many people moved from farmlands to the cities, this is known as urbanization. We have one more slide we need to copy down for today. Okay? So please copy down what is known as the urban cycle. All right, you just need to copy down what's in red. I will discuss it in 30 seconds. Okay, so as you're copying this down, please just notice this cycle here. And what this cycle means is basically all these things are all going to work together. So let's first start with industrialization, which is the rise of factories and industry within our country. Because we have a rise of industry and we have a rise of factories, there's going to lead to a rise in jobs. A lot of people are going to have the opportunity to work in these factories, and a lot of people that have the opportunity to work in these factories are immigrants. Okay, so since we have a lot of immigrants coming into our country, we are able to build more factories. Okay, when we have a lot of immigrants come in, many immigrants are going to move to the cities, places like New York City and the Bronx. They're not going to move out into farmland. Okay, and since you have a lot of people moving to, coming from other countries, they're going to move into the cities. And since more people are moving into the cities, that means we can build more factories. And since we can build more factories, we can have more immigrants come in. And since we have more immigrants coming in, they can keep moving to the cities. And since more people move into the cities, we can keep building up more factories. It's an endless cycle. Okay? So, why this is important and why New York City is as big as it is, why Chicago's as big as it is, why the Bronx is as big as it is because we have a lot of people that live here. Okay, and why a lot of people live here is because most of the industry and most of the factories took place and were located in major cities. You wouldn't find a lot of factories in farmland. You'd find a lot of factories in cities. Therefore, not only will we have more immigrants coming into the cities, we knew this from our previous part of Unit 2, but we also have more immigrants coming into the cities. We will have many former farmers as well. So you don't only have immigrants coming into the city, you have people who used to be farmers, people who used to live in the middle of the country, people who lived out west, moving now to the cities as well. We have a huge increase in our population in the cities. Places like New York City, place very close to our home, a lot of people move there at this time. Another word for urban is city. So urbanization is what's known as the rapid movement of people from farmland into cities. Okay? With so many people moving into the city, this will lead to many future problems that this country will have to deal with. But for now, all we need to know is that there is a lot of people moving to cities. So I'm going to put this in the chat, okay? Lot more factories, okay? Lot more immigrants, and a lot more people living in the cities. Okay? More factories, more immigrants, a lot more people living in the cities. This is how our country started to change from 1870 to 1920. You can see it in this photo here. You see how different this looks. This looks more like New York City as we know it in 1920, not in 1870. It's just 50 years. This cycle begins to change. Okay? So our country is growing with people. Our country is growing with jobs. Our country is getting bigger and more economically stronger. And this is because of these three things: industrialization, more factory jobs, more immigrants, and more people, urbanization, moving into the cities. Okay, the more people living in an area, it does lead to problems, but that also leads to a lot of wealth that comes to the area. And why New York City is one of the wealthiest areas of the country, why you have a lot of people there, is because of it's a major city and a lot of jobs are there, like factory jobs, even today. All right. So let's go into today's assignment. Let me go to here. That's not you guys, sorry. Let's go to here. Okay. I want to mention a couple things. All right, when you come in on Monday, everyone read this right now. There will be a 10-question mini quiz on lesson 6 to 8. Okay, so today's lesson, yesterday's lesson, and then Monday and Tuesday's lesson. Okay, so go back and review some of the details there. It's not really even something you should study too hard with, but just something you should be aware of. Please refer back to the lessons to study and know the major topics such as industry, child labor, capitalism we did yesterday, monopolies. Just letting you know on Monday when you come in, there's a mini quiz. It's your first grade for the second marking period. All right, so you want to get off to a good start, so be prepared for that. All right, but for the rest of class, you guys are working on 2 assignments, both on the same document. We haven't spent much time on child labor. We know throughout the industrial era, a lot of little children like this girl here, Mary Richards, who is 10 years old, worked in these very dangerous factories. Though this is a very tough reading, not that it's long or difficult to read, it's just a very sad reading, please take a look at why this is a very sad reading and answer the questions here. So questions 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are multiple choice questions. Please highlight or circle the number of the correct answer below. Okay, so you can highlight if you think this is the answer. You can highlight if you think this is the answer. Okay, or you could just bold it or circle it. Just make it obvious that's the answer. Okay, and then you're going to answer questions 6 and 7. All right, when you're done with that, you have a shorter reading called the urbanization reading. A short reading here, you may have to zoom in if it's tough to read. It's very easy to do, just like I did there. Okay. Zoom in if it's tough to read, and then you got to answer, 3 more questions, questions 8, 9, and 10 based off of this reading. All right. So you guys are working on this for the rest of the period. This is your final classwork grade of the first marking period. Please get it done. This is the final thing that's going into Jupiter, besides just an overall classwork participation grade and effort that you gave for the first marking period, which if you've done all of the work, you're going to get 100. If you've done most of the work, you'll get in the 90s. And if you haven't been so good, then you should be spending a lot of this weekend going back and trying to make up some of the work, because the marking period ends at 11:59 tonight. All right. Please write in the chat, did you guys know what you were doing? Just give me an okay or a thumbs up so we can move on. I want to give you about 20 minutes to work on this. And then you guys obviously just let me know if you finish early. Okay, Zakaria, Elhan. Perfect. Okay, so you guys are good. All right, so you guys work on this. I'm here if you need any help. This first reading is sad. Okay, it's very sad. So I'm just letting you know. Okay, it's going to be tough to read, but this is kind of what happened throughout this time, and this is why we had to make changes to children working in factories. All right.